Welcome to Legal Practice Intelligence.
Thanks, David. Good to be here.
I have been wanting to chat with you for a good while. It's been my fault for not getting things organised on my side, but goodness me, we've had some amazing chats in the past about law firms and how they operate, and I guess models of efficiency and what you've seen in the marketplace. You've got a wealth of knowledge in the marketplace. You're the Chief Revenue Officer currently for Smokeball, and growing the business from strength to strength over the years internationally. So I'm actually really happy to have you on today.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Brilliant. So I guess, do you want to, maybe for some of the international folks that may not know you, who are in our audience, I guess, do you want to give a bit of a bit of information about your background, I guess, what you're doing, and the industry and other introductions?
Sure. So I've been in legal tech for a really long time before it was called legal tech. For like the late 90s, I joined Leap, which was a startup. It was the fourth employer of Leap, and since then I've worked. I worked obviously for Leap for a long time. I worked for Axia, which was a UK software company, and then I was involved with Smokeball from the ground up. So starting in the US, we opened in Chicago in 2013, 10 years ago.
My goodness me.
Yeah, and started, it's a practice management software for smaller law firms, or small to mid, I'd say now. Spent about 6 years doing that as the president of the fancy title of the US business. And then I moved back here just before COVID, and working with our teams in Australia and the US still.
Brilliant. I mean, I know that Smokeball, I remember actually talking to you a very, very long time ago, actually, when you first probably went to Chicago. And that's quite an amazing achievement to actually grow a business like that internationally, especially an Aussie-based company.
It was definitely, it was definitely not easy. I think the first 3 years, you definitely had moments where you considered going home with your tail between your legs, but we just kept going. Yeah, I think the US market, particularly for Australians, can be underestimated. It's very different to Australia, UK, and so on. And just getting a start there and getting, a new software off the ground, we kind of bit off a lot of things at the same time, which in retrospect was possibly not the wisest thing, but that's, I guess, we learn. But now we've got, thousands of law firms in the US using our software, which Incredible. Is just crazy to think of now. It's great, very exciting, and and so much scope still there for us. So it's still focus.
It's actually interesting because we were sort of, I guess, in the past had sort of similar journey in terms of actually with software company myself. And it's interesting, I guess, what did you see as the main sort of, the main challenges from an Australian company hitting the world stage?
I don't know if this is an Australian company. Well, I guess when it comes to the Australian company, there's definitely the cultural challenges of Americans are they're just different people to Australians, and they're motivated largely to. This is stereotypes, but there's stereotypes are there for a reason, I guess. But I think the larger challenges were not the cultural ones. It was more the fact that the US market had a lot of time and billing software, and if you can, and so we were like, you know what, we've got time and billing, but we're really a productivity. Well, actually, we didn't back then, but we've got a productivity focus, getting work done focus, and they need that. But the market was very different to Australia and UK, where there's a very recognised need for management or matter management software. Like in Australia or the UK, I don't think you would consider trying. The majority don't consider trying to run a law firm without those tools. It's totally different. Probably 50% of law firms today in the US are still not using case management or matter management software. So that was the hard thing, because we're a little bit early to market, really. There's a reason why time and billing was popular. That's what they focused on, was getting the bills out the door. So us coming in with like a productivity focus, it was kind of like, well, what does this mean? What does this do? Do we need this?
It must be quite incredible to sort of get I guess, gather the knowledge over the years of all the different firms and actually how they've gone, how they've, I guess, created a business case where they've seen the software, they've actually said, we need this kind of software. It's integral to us working in the practice, and collecting the ways in which they've actually gone from, I guess, from maybe not so productive to super productive and actually super profitable. So it would be amazing to collect that sort of information internationally over the years.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we're just about to sort of launch a project ourselves of sort of looking at our own clients' data to see, what they go from and to, particularly in the US.
Wow, yeah.
Journey with Smokeball, because we do change their businesses and we do make them, I mean, we call it that, they do a better job for their clients, and they make more money doing it, and they have more fun doing it. They're less stressed because they feel organized and in control, and all those wonderful things that you should feel when you're running a business.
It's interesting. I mean, have you got and I'm going to put you on the spot, have you got a good anecdote to talk about one of the firms you've actually sort of had some person involved with in terms of taking from here to here?
I would say that, I think of a specific example. Look, we have a lot of firms who, the purpose of Smokeball, companies have their purpose. Our purpose for a long time was to create the epiphany.
Yeah.
We changed it because it just sounds a bit silly, but because I had multiple clients who would come to me about 6 months in and be like, we bought Smokeball to solve, this problem.
Yeah.
Everything is easier. So that is kind of the feedback we get is that just life is so much easier. And the anecdotes, I mean, we've had, over the years, someone, a client might be like, we're gonna leave you. We're gonna go to Clio because it's cheaper. And then like, you're not comparing apples with apples here. They're different. They do different things, these two products, Smokeball. And then multiple times that they've come back to us and said, our staff are mutinying. We need it back. We're in chaos. So I think those are the stories we hear. And then there's the money, just the, people making more money, which they some of the stats around small law firms particularly and what they make. So Clio puts out a legal trends report every year, and that digging into their data, the average small firm is billing about 2 hours per day for the fee earners.
Wow.
In the US.
Goodness.
2 hours. And so, I mean, it's nothing. So, that's something that we're really on a bit of a mission to improve for our clients. And we've got the automatic time tracking in Smokeball, which when you dovetail that with the productivity tools, so you get, we know what you've done, so we can bill it for you automatically because you're using the software to get your work done. That's making a pretty profound difference to our clients.
I mean, why is that? Like, why? I guess everyone's working really hard at a law firm practice, their legal practice, putting the hours and that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, if I guess the billables are a small amount, like what's actually happening so that result isn't so great?
So, I mean, I'm going to use two very broad buckets. You've got, very large law firms where if you're not billing 6 hours per day or whatever it is, you're out the door. Mm-hmm. And then in a lot of small law firms, and not everyone or whatever will be like this, but we come across a lot of clients who don't know how much time their staff are tracking. And in fact, we did a survey a couple of years ago and we're like, how many hours per day do your staff bill? And the biggest response was, I don't know.
Oh, goodness.
So, they're working hard. And lots of people end up running law firms who want to do law and not run a business. And so all the business stuff just goes to the wayside. It's a lot, so we see people with billing processes that haven't been examined in, 20 years because they don't really want to think about it. And we see, so it's just not their focus. But the fact is they're not making anywhere near the money they should be for the important work they're doing. So, yeah. I
mean, what do you see, I guess, what does a good firm look like in terms of billings and that kind of stuff, and like in productivity? Like what kind of stats would you see from a really great firm that you've actually worked with?
Well, what we like to see, we actually have a report in Singapore, we call it the billing performance report, and because we automatically track everything everyone in the firm does. Mm-hmm. And when we started to, and so we track all the time, and then we compared it to how many hours each fee earner and the firm is billing.
Mm-hmm.
And when we ran it, we were dismayed to find that a lot of our clients were billing far less than the actual work that we were tracking. And we're not tracking every single thing they do, right? I mean, and so a good firm is one where we see that graph is literally above what we're tracking. So that could be 6 hours per day. It could be, and it depends, right? If you're rainmaker, maybe it's 3 hours per day for you, but it's 6-7 hours per day for your staff. It depends on the firm. So I think it's hard to broad brushstroke it. But it's definitely more than 2.
Well, I mean, that's I'm just doing the maths in my head now and thinking to myself, like, how could you survive on 2 hours a day of billing? It's
grim. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you've got staff often.
Yeah. I know. I mean, you can jack your hourly rate up as much as you want. That sort of stuff. But 2 hours a day bill is still 2 hours a day bill. It's just nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What innovative billing practices are you seeing firms undertake? Like, what innovative things are you looking in that whole sort of billing cycle and work cycle you're seeing people do?
I'd say there's lots of stuff going on. We definitely see more family law firms, for example, trying to do fixed fee for some parts of the work. Mm-hmm. So we see, some of the fixed fee stuff coming in more. We see firms, and you see people are charging subscription, all that kind of stuff. But as a majority, most firms aren't doing that. We've had demand from our clients for 1-minute units, which I really like, because we're going to charge you just for the work that we do, and when you pair that with auto time, it's what I'm hoping to see is kind of a move to more transparent billing. Something that we're talking about internally a lot is like, how do we, it's a great thing for the firm and for their clients if everyone feels they're being paid, billing fairly and transparently, and based on our data, the firm's going to actually win in that situation anyway. And then and the stuff, I mean, I'll talk about us a little bit, but what we also want our clients to do is spend less time on their bills, because trust the time tracking, trust the process, and so we're trying to do more and more ways that, things with the software and looking at how things end up on a bill and what ends up on a bill and what needs to be on a bill for a client to think about paying it, rather than, because a lot of law firms, they write very detailed descriptions for everything that they do. And, the client gets this scroll of information and they're probably never going to read it. And, but I think it's hard when you provide an intangible service to show that value, particularly, people aren't always having the best experience when they go to a lawyer in their lives, not with the lawyer themselves. So, the more we can do to help lawyers feel confident about their billing practices, the better.
And I guess that billing practice sort of starts at the very, very first meeting at engagement, where they're sort of where they're kind of quoting. I mean, me as a punter who goes along to my lawyer, I sort of say, well, in the realm of X, Y, and Z, what's this going to cost me, to do a buy-sell agreement or something like that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's funny you say that, because I think that is a real opportunity, is to people think about billing at the end of the process. They should be thinking about billing at the beginning of the process.
Yeah.
That is probably the other thing we're thinking about a lot internally is, the times have changed and the consumer has the power now, right? And as a law firm, if I speak to any law firm, they tell me that they get most of their clients through word of mouth and referrals. I could just word of mouth and referral, word of mouth, referral. And that's great. But you often get more than one referral or recommendation. And if you go to one person's website and they've got a beautiful intake form, and suddenly you've given them all this key information, and you feel good about that lawyer, you've suddenly paid some money, you've signed an engagement agreement, those firms are going to win. Because
totally.
Those firms are going to win. And so I think that is the change that's happening now. And I think it's a big change. And a lot of firms are not kind of up to it. And if they think about that, front loading that billing process is better for the firm. It's actually better for the client, because if you're looking for a lawyer, you don't want to be searching through the wilderness and waiting. You want to commit. You actually want to get that engagement letter done.
Exactly.
You want to get that fee paid, that, whatever retainer paid. So you can go, okay, I've tick that box. I'm done. I have a lawyer. I can, I'm starting whatever process I'm starting. So yeah, and I think that is a lot of stuff we're working on right now, actually, is really making that front end process so good and easy for the firm and easy for the client, so that you're converting more clients, because people focus a lot on getting leads and pay money to get leads to the firm, but a lot of people don't focus enough on converting those leads and and that's not just, that's a lot of experience stuff, and a lot of people now are choosing and converting without talking to a human. So you need to, it's kind of a pretty important time for lawyers to take advantage of this stuff.
Well, it feeds in that sort of any time sort of work pattern, doesn't it? I guess what you've got is, people, as business people, we sort of, at 11 o'clock at night, there's an issue that's come up. We want to be able to actually have some sort of way of connecting with the firm or dealing with it, or knowing we've got the process in place, and not having to wait probably 3 or 4 days or a week to go and get a meeting with somebody to sit down and actually drive into the city or do what you're doing. And it's anytime, you really want that anytime sort of service.
Yeah, years ago when I was in Chicago, we needed an employment lawyer for something, and I called up this firm, and they were like, "You're going to call back in the next 4 business days."
Oh,
I was like, "Next?"
Yeah.
That is, you're right. It's any time, and I think it's something that, it's a reality today, isn't it? It's not down the track now. It's now.
Oh, it is. The whole remote work patterns have happened, I guess, from COVID, as a result of COVID. I guess that's really sort of strengthened that sort of anytime and anywhere kind of thing as well.
Yeah, 100%.
You've got lawyers, I guess. There is the opportunity for country lawyers to pick up city work. Because of cost advantage and differentials and that kind of thing, potentially speaking. People don't really, I think, care as much these days where you're based, but just getting a job done.
Yeah, the high street lawyer isn't as much of a thing anymore, is it? Like you walk down the main street of your town and you choose a lawyer, and because they're the one that, that's really changed. And we see some firms who are doing very well, and providing more, innovative services to help people. Like they might just look after, family law. There's more people looking after the mediation side of things, and they're farming that out to firms. But, by doing clever marketing, they're getting a lot of work. And from, as you say, not from a wide geographical area. So I think for the people who are wanting to think about their business in that way, and think about how to engage with the consumer who wants to choose someone at 11 p.m., there's a lot of opportunity right now. Yeah.
I think as well, I guess because of what's actually happened in the world and technology, I guess what there is the opportunity to think about, I guess, how lawyers who've worked all their lives in a firm can actually then maximize and I guess, get paid fairly for the value of the business. And I guess leveraging technology and having the right kind of systems in place and processes in place, potentially mean there's a much better chance of succession.
That's definitely true. I think, interestingly, I feel Australian firms are much more cognizant of that than say in the US, of having, having all your information, or having something to sell that's not just a huge mess, right? That is what unfortunately some people leave behind, is big mess. And because it can be anything, right? You break your leg badly, you can't come back to work for a while. Like it's really important to have good processes, good systems. And the good thing about software these days, and obviously I put Smokeball amongst that, and you're at the top of that, not biased at all, is that it does a lot of that stuff for you, like in spite of yourself. That's kind of what I say. Like if you use this software, it's kind of designed for the way you work. It's designed exactly for a way, I don't know, conveyancer or a family lawyer or a litigator or whatever you are, does their work. So if you just sort of follow the bouncing ball, you're going to be organized and you're going to be more productive, and all the stuff's going to be in the right place, and everyone, you hire a new person remotely now. How do they know what to do? You're not sitting watching over someone's shoulder for this is how the firm does things, this is where they save things. And, you need to have great tools so someone can be like, that are intuitive enough that you can pretty much plug and play, right? This makes sense to me. I know where to find things. I know where to save things. I know how to create things. So I think that is another big shift, is that, there's the succession in, and then there's just remote work, flexible work is here to stay. And you want to have tools that people can use. You, as a firm owner, you want to have visibility of what's going on, which, that we'd built that into Smokeball, actually, this sort of, we call it, activity tracker, activity intelligence, a few years ago. And I mean, during COVID, people were just like, it was just so good to be able to see what everyone's working on and balance workloads, and not, I mean, it's a big brother, but some of it is, but some of it is just helping each other out.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You made a good point about the, I guess getting people on board. I mean, and actually people working anywhere. I mean, effectively, one of the biggest issues I hear from law firms these days is actually about recruiting people, getting people on board, finding staff, and things like that. I mean, what you have with a good system is you've got the ability, such as Smokeball, is you've got the ability to actually go and recruit people from anywhere, really, and intake them, and actually have standardized processes, ways of measuring and managing, and actually have a distributed workforce.
100%. Yeah, no, it's funny because, again, it's not things that we thought about that much when we were building the software, but as it turns out, that is actually one of the most important things for people right now. And as you say, for the savvy business person, it's actually a great opportunity to hire from anywhere, to hire a greater talent pool, because that's the other thing we see happening right now, is that our clients are really struggling to find staff. We have people who call us to reduce, we don't need that user on our software anymore. And we're like, well, are you going to replace it, or, just out of interest? And they're like, we can't find anyone. It's so being able to search in a wider pool is going to be important. Obviously, productivity, getting more work done with the team you have, is really important. So yeah, it's an interesting time to run a business.
Oh, definitely. And definitely, I mean, one of the things I used to sort of tap into a lot as well is actually this whole idea of becoming a nomad and actually having a business anywhere and working from anywhere. I mean, for a law firm principal or partner, I mean, the opportunity is to actually go and travel and work anywhere in the world and actually have your practice and your business and people different places and actually get the work done. Yeah,
I mean, it's like one of our developers was saying that he's thinking about buying a van and a Starlink connection and just traveling around Australia for a year. I don't know how practical that's going to be, working from a van in the desert. It might be a bit hot, but you never know. You could do it now. Things have changed. You can. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, just jumping around to the whole billing side of things and client experience. I mean, what kind of innovations are you seeing from a client experience point of view for law firms? What clever things are they doing in relation to billing with clients?
I would say that firms are definitely embracing more of that kind of finding their clients where they are. So, more mobile stuff, whatever that looks like. So we, for example, have we've got an app that our clients can download. So, if you're using for the firm, if your client is using that on their phone, it's a really great way for them to engage and communicate and get important information back and forward, and really provide a very different client experience. So I think that is probably one thing that we're really seeing. And again, it's across our client base, it's definitely polarized. There's some people who love it. There's some people who find it just a bit all too much for them. But, in the rise of the client experience has to be secure.
Yes.
And I think law is pretty behind in that, if you're an accountant, your clients are using portals generally now to send information. Lawyers are still getting a lot of highly confidential information through email, which is not great. So I think providing a secure and easy client experience is kind of the order of the day. So that's what I like, the mobile lawyer and the mobile client is a real thing. So if you can find your clients, even, we've got SMS, so our clients can SMS their clients, and doing it in a way, again, that's, you're not necessarily sharing your phone number with your clients, which most people don't want to do.
Clever.
And the time's tracked, and you've got an audit trail that, you told your client to be at court at this time on this day, time stamped. You can see that it was delivered.
Wow.
Checks the firm, also gives the client a great experience. So I think, and the other thing we're seeing is, the more that you can automate that, if you can feed, drip feed information to your client so that it's not, when you're using a lawyer, it's the most awful thing is when you don't hear anything.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's going on? And then I think most of the complaints against lawyers are still usually around communication. It's the biggest pot. So we give our clients tools so you kind of have stages. So, your matter can go through different stages, and as it hits a different stage, it can ping off an automatic message that's going to pop up on their client's phone as a kind of WhatsApp style message of this has now happened. This is what happens next. So you're safe as a client. You feel like your lawyer's got you, and it's not, a manual thing for the firm to have to do. So I think that, there's a lot of stuff happening in client experience that is going to make clients, stickier, have a good experience, make it easier for them to pay their bills, give them, an easy online way to pay their bills through, Stripe or whatever it is. I think just, tying that whole process up into a bow is what the best firms are doing.
Well, it's value as well. I guess what it does, I think to myself, if from a point of view of, I can access the information, there's great communication. I feel like I'm getting, resolution of my questions. I'm getting a great experience. Me facing the bill at a point in time is going to be a much, much easier, outcome.
That's right. Exactly. And, some of our clients, I've spoken to firms before, not usually in Australia actually, but who, you're trying to sell them software and they're like, oh, we can't buy right now because we haven't billed our clients for 4 months.
Goodness me.
We need to get that sorted out. And you're like,
amazing.
For the love of God, who's going to pay you after 4 months? Like, I'm going to be like, I've moved on with my life.
That's right. That's right.
So regular, and we've, making it easy for you to go, who hasn't been billed in this period of time? And who's got unbilled time approaching this amount? Because that's just flick them all a bill right now. Even if I'd rather get a bill weekly if I've got a very active case, so I know what I'm up for, rather than getting a huge bill a month down the track even. So
well, that sort of blends into a conversation we actually had a couple of weeks ago, which is around subscription. Basically a law firm offering a law as a service type offering where they're paying a regular monthly amount which covers X amount of services and hours and things.
Yeah, I think, and I've definitely seen firms doing that. I haven't seen a lot of firms doing that, but as a consumer, like particularly as a business, it's a great thing to have, to set and forget, isn't it?
Totally. You basically got X amount of hitting your credit card or hitting a bank, and you just know that you've got the lawyer on call. You can talk to them. You can get access to information if it's related to employment, whatever else matters you want to talk about. But yeah.
Well, I think employment law is the place where there's been a lot of innovation. If you look at Employment Hero and what they do, really, it's software, but it's also you've got that employment law service off the back of it. They've done a really clever job at wrapping up, software and advice and the whole package into something very compelling for a business. So, that they have a lot of employment lawyers on staff there. So that's quite a disruptive business model that they've started.
No, it's actually it's interesting, because when you look at these innovative areas of law, and you then sort of say to yourself, well, actually, there's other services that they're leading a charge in some areas in client experience and doing interesting things. But then you look at this sort of other areas of the practice. For example, it could be wills or whatever, or tax or whatever other sort of areas they could then offer to their clients. I mean, people getting this experience over here, but that allows them to sort of like cross-sell services.
Yeah, and I would love to see more of that. Most of our clients, they will do they'll do a piece of work for a person, and then they'll wait for them to come back. And you forget who they are. Even you'd be like,
that's right.
You bought a house 10 years ago. You don't remember who your lawyer was necessarily, unless you had a very, very good or very, very bad experience with that person. So yeah, I would love to see our clients doing more of that kind of cross-sell, keeping top of mind. You're going to build more word of mouth. You're going to get, everyone should probably be updating their wills and their powers of attorney every 5 years or so.
Totally agree.
All that stuff. Yeah. It's
totally
low hanging fruit.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Jane, it's been amazing having you on today. It was a great discussion as always. Looking forward to having you on again very soon to talk about, I guess, what's going on, industry topics, amazing insights and knowledge about the industry. Thank you so much. And I guess if law firms, you've got this wealth of knowledge, I guess, how do people, I guess, get access to that knowledge, that bank of knowledge from yourself and Smokeball?
Yeah, we actually do. Smokeball does a lot of webinars and thought leadership stuff that we're producing all the time. So you'll see that if you follow us on LinkedIn. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, and always just reach out to me individually on LinkedIn too if anyone wants to chat.
Brilliant. Jane, thank you so very much. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thanks, David.